Beaches of South Walton Tourist Development Council proudly presents our destination's most pristine hidden treasures. In 1881, a group of railroad surveyors came upon a perfectly round lake in the heart of a virgin forest. One of the surveyors, Colonel W.D. Chipley, so fascinated by the beauty before him, exclaimed, "Here a town shall be built. The lake is one of two almost perfectly round lakes in the world." The town of Defuniak Springs, named for Frederick R. Defuniak, an official of the L&N Railroad, was founded in the early 1880s and chosen as a winter home for the New York Chautauqua in 1884. The Florida Chautauqua Association held its first assembly here in February of 1885. The Chautauqua Hall Auditorium was built in 1909 and hosted the Florida Chautauqua cultural and educational programs until the Great Depression. Today, the city uses this beautiful building for many social and community functions, including a newly revived Chautauqua program. It is also home of the Walton County Chamber of Commerce. To take a walk around Lake Defuniak is a walk back into Victorian times, when labor and material were plentiful and elaborate architectural details were incorporated in the homes being built. Turrets, double verandas, classic fluted columns, gingerbread trim, and dormer windows all resulted in outstanding Victorian architecture. The Walton Defuniak Library is the oldest in the state of Florida, still serving the public today. The library was built in 1887 at a mere cost of $580. The Murray Theater, better known today as the Ritz Theater, was built in 1921 by the Tappan brothers. Today, with community support and a grant from the Florida Department of State, Division of Historic Resources, the theater has been renovated to its original splendor. Built in 1920, Hotel Defuniak is rich in history and traditions of this quaint Chautauqua town. The charmingly restored boutique hotel is set in the distinctive historic district of Defuniak Springs, which hosts the hometown Christmas Festival of Lights. 30 miles south of Defuniak Springs on the southern shore of Choctawhatchee Bay is the beautiful beaches of South Walton. The Wesley Mansion in South Walton's historic Eden State Gardens was the home of William Henry Wesley, a lumber baron who timbered our area from the 1890s until after World War I, exporting wood as far as Europe and South America. Walton County's past landscape was covered in virgin forest of cypress and longleaf pines reaching well over 100 feet tall. For more than a century, lumbermen lived off the land, cutting the logs and hauling them by ox cart and boat to nearby sawmills built on the waters along the shore of Choctawhatchee Bay. Live oak was used to build the ships of the U.S. Navy and the merchant fleet. Bald cypress was shipped across the country in the form of fine furniture and home building materials. In the 1940s, St. Joe Paper Company purchased tracts of land in northern and western Florida to grow pine trees for paper production. Just as the pine became the money crop for St. Joe Paper, it was also the money crop for naval stores, which provided turpentine to caulk the seams of wooden ships. Today, Arvida, a St. Joe company, is developing distinct homes and unique neighborhoods on its land and beaches of South Walton. The romance of old Florida isn't just a memory of the past. It's still all around us today. It lives richly in our natural landscape, so cherished and preserved within beaches of South Walton. The landscape of our little piece of paradise dates back to the end of the last ice age. 350 million years ago, the Appalachian Mountains were as tall as the Swiss Alps. Over eons, the wind and rain wore down the mountains, washing tiny bits of granite into the Apalachicola River and out eventually into the Gulf of Mexico. The currents of the Gulf carried the grains of rock westward, and the waves broke the rock into smaller particles of pure quartz crystal that had been deposited over 10,000 years, helping to build our 26 miles of pure white beach, now famous the world over. To examine our sand under a magnifying glass, it is perfectly clear as sugar crystals, with almost no crushed shell or other particles. We like to think of our beaches as singing sand. The quartz ground into perfect ovals makes our sand sing when your toes touch the sugary white crystals of our beaches. The wind and waves of Mother Nature have deposited sand along the coast over millions of years in a dynamic system of give and take between land and sea. One of the plant species that grew to live poised between the sea and high ground is the graceful grass called sea oats, with roots running as deep as 40 feet. By creating an intricate web of roots, sea oats and other beach plants literally hold the dunes together against the onslaught of hurricanes and other Gulf storms. Our sea oats are so valuable that the law protects them. It is unlawful to pick their blooms or seed heads. Sea oats are not the only plant that lives right on the beach. Beach morning glory and railroad vine crisscrossing the open sand, the purple blossom of spiderwort, golden balduina, and other salt-tolerant natives help hold the dune system together. Sand dunes are constantly growing and changing. Ever so fragile are these hills of sand. Beaches of South Walton's Tourist Development Council protects them by building dune walkovers. Please use the convenient walkovers and help protect our dunes. At the top of the primary dune begins the community of plants called scrub. Scrub may not sound romantic, but it is one of the rarest habitats left on Earth. It has been said that scrub in the state of Florida is being destroyed at a rate faster than the protected rainforests of the world. The Gulf Coast is home to thousands of species of plants and animals, many of which live nowhere else. The vibrant contact point of sea and land makes for rich and lively habitat. Dune rosemary is frequently seen in the open sand ridges along ancient dunes near our beaches. Dune rosemary's strong, spicy fragrance in hot weather gives the scrub a unique and pleasant smell. Saw palmetto is one of the most recognizable of Florida's native plants. The palmetto is a palm tree with its trunk growing sideways, underground. In Florida, you will find this most adaptable plant growing in the shade under pine trees and in full sun out on the dunes. Plants that grow at the peak of the dune look small and are in fact stunted by the constant wind and salt from the Gulf. Many of these plants are actually quite large and old. Underground, the oaks, sand pines, magnolias, and palmettos may have large trunks buried deep in the sand. Sometimes you can see the trunk uncovered, as in Grayton Beach State Park, where a very ancient pine grows mostly underground. Many different species of pines date back 400 million years. This scrappy little sand pine with its bright green crinkly needles and sculptural trunk grows nowhere else except along the Gulf Coast. Slash pine also grows near the beach. Longleaf pine was the prominent tree of the southeastern United States until it was timbered almost to extinction. In beaches of South Walton, you can still find longleaf pine flatwoods and sandhills. Point Washington State Forest is the home of a variety of unique wildlife and plant communities, which include sandhills, coastal sand pine scrub, longleaf pine, flatwoods, wet prairies, cypress ponds, and tai-tai swamps. The forest provides the perfect environment for the gopher tortoise, a species of special concern, and the red-cockaded woodpecker, listed as an endangered species. The gopher tortoise was once an important food source for poor rural Southerners during the Depression. Today, human predation is the least of their problems. In order to preserve the gopher tortoise, we must also preserve the longleaf forest habitats. The red-cockaded woodpecker excavates cavities in live pine trees that are 100 years old. Nesting cavities take years to complete and are handed down from fathers to sons. The trees not only provide homes for the woodpeckers, but also sanctuary from fire and climbing predators. The survival of this species relies solely on the preservation of old-growth pine forest. Point Washington State Forest is a 15,000-acre tract purchased by the state in 1992, offering more than 10 miles of trail for the enjoyment of bicyclists, hikers, and nature lovers. Enthusiasts particularly enjoy its trails from Eastern Lake to Cassine Garden. Live oak is the picture of the romance of old Florida and the Deep South. Sand live oak, closely related to live oak, is a smaller tree with very cupped leaves, silvery bark, twisted trunk, and remarkable salt tolerance. Sand live oak lives right on the primary dunes, along with its cousins myrtle oak and Chapman's oak. In historic Grayton Beach, old sand live oaks define the character of the town, which dates back more than 100 years. On a stroll of one of Grayton's sandy tree-lined streets, you can view these magnificent ancient oaks. In Rosemary Beach, sand live oaks have been planted formally as street trees. The developers of Rosemary Beach planted trees to grow and create a tree tunnel over Scenic Byway 30A. Underneath the canopy of scrub, the buzz of life goes on, undetected by the human eye. Animals live happily in the shade and protection. The Choctawhatchee beach mouse, an endangered species, has survived thousands of years hidden among the dunes and protective scrub. Along the Gulf of Mexico, sand dunes protect small pockets of oak, pine, magnolia, bay, yaupon, and palmetto from the constant wind and salt air that keep the scrub pruned as surely and neatly as a hedge. These protected wooded areas grow up in tangled, sculpted, canopied rooms called hammocks, from the Spanish word hamaca. Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings, author of the classic book about old Florida, says, "I like to think of the Spaniards blazing their trails through the Florida hammocks. The hammocks were the same then as now and will be the same forever if men can be induced to leave them alone." Beaches of South Walton holds unique treasures in its pristine coastal dune lakes. These freshwater, sometimes brackish lakes are located immediately next to saltwater and are very rare in the world. Coastal dune lakes are important breeding areas for birds and mammals inhabiting surrounding coastal ecosystems. Beaches of South Walton is home to 17 lakes. Our communities regularly test lake waters in partnership with the University of Florida's Lake Watch program. The plants and animals that have come to live here are some of the most rare and beautiful on Earth. Magnolias and water lilies are among the oldest and most primitive of all flowering plants. The great blue heron is a vital component of our ecosystem. This beautiful and graceful bird is an important predator. It helps in the natural control of snakes, frogs, insects, fish, and birds. Watch for this graceful bird along the beaches, lakes, and marshes. Dolphins are frequently seen playing in the crest of waves along our emerald shores. These delightful creatures resemble fish, but are in fact marine mammals. Sea turtles live in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico and nest along Florida's beaches. Of the 8 species of sea turtles worldwide, 5 are found in the state of Florida. In beaches of South Walton, the Turtle Watch volunteers monitor the nesting habitats of the loggerhead and green sea turtles. Everyone can help to ensure the survival of the sea turtle. Remember to always turn your beachfront lights out during nesting season, May 1st to October 31st, and never disturb turtle nests or harass nesting turtles. The brown pelican is one of many species of birds that was nearly driven to extinction by the spraying of DDT. 20 years ago, this graceful flyer and beautiful beach inhabitant was a rare sight along the white sandy beaches of South Walton. Today, we are indeed fortunate to have this endangered species back in large numbers. The waterways of Walton County are many and varied. The rivers flowing from Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee into Choctawhatchee Bay are wonderful and exciting to explore. On a trip along Choctawhatchee River, you can see an osprey or a bald eagle patiently scouting the river for its dinner. The bald eagle, our proud national symbol, is a resident of our community. Florida is second only to Alaska in bald eagle populations. Additionally, to our winter nesting population, we also serve as an important stop for migrating eagles. On the river, you may catch a glimpse of a shy alligator as he slides off the bank into the dark water, or see an old log full of turtles basking in the Florida sunshine. Gators have always been a part of Walton County history. Long ago, when it was legal, trappers would go to the rivers at night to hunt the reptiles. Alligators are now a protected species, which makes them illegal to hunt. Wildflowers bloom every day of the year in our area. Our roadsides downright show off in spring and fall. The wild rosemary called Conradina, with its lovely silver needles, blooms sweetly in March. Soon after, Gulf Coast lupine sends up its striking bloom spikes. The bluish-purple flowers and silver leaves are so showy that they are seen at quite a distance. Legend has it that pirates off the coast saw the tall dunes covered in the blue of blooming lupine and called the area Blue Mountain Beach. Gulf Coast lupine is a rare and endangered plant growing near the beach in the Florida Panhandle. In fall, the sandhills explode with the beautiful splendor of wildflowers as they come into bloom. Groundsel tree is a soft, feathery evergreen shrub that grows along the Gulf and Atlantic coasts all the way to New England. Blooming white all over in fall, the monarchs come to its flowers in droves. Sometimes you will see dozens of butterflies on a single shrub. These golden flowers bloom through our byways and communities, providing stunning scenery as well as attracting thousands of monarch butterflies that make their annual fall migration along the Gulf Coast to Mexico. Monarchs are attracted to native milkweeds where they lay their eggs. Monarch caterpillars eat only milkweed leaves up to the time they make their astonishing transformation from worm to wings. As adult butterflies, they dine on the nectar of goldenrod, golden asters, and other wildflowers. Folks around here live and garden in small beach communities tucked into the native landscape. Whimsical birdhouses are the trademark of Pickett's, a specialty garden shop nestled within white picket fences and colorful flower beds. The gourd garden, with gardens of native plants, gourds growing on rustic arbors, award-winning wildflowers, and butterfly gardens, are all featured in Southern Living magazine. Bayou Arts and Antiques is located in the old town of Santa Rosa on quiet Hogtown Bayou. Here you can discover the history of a vanished town and stroll a forest path to St. Francis Wildlife Chapel, almost hidden in the old trees where the town once stood. Point Washington is the most eastern point on Choctawhatchee Bay and was once a thriving port community. In 1880, there were 2 steam sawmills producing over 1 million feet of lumber each. Walton County is reputed to be the oldest lumbering area in Florida's Panhandle. Today, the residents in this sleepy little community still attend church services in the original Methodist Church and rely on the old post office to receive mail. Grayton Beach is one of the oldest coastal communities in Florida's Panhandle. The residents are friendly and welcome the opportunity to share the colorful history and uniqueness of this town, adorned with eclectic shopping opportunities. In Seagrove Beach, you can meander through canopied streets lined with magnificent live oaks, with homes nestled beneath their protective shade, or stop in and enjoy a visit with one of our merchants while enjoying the splendor of our native landscape. Seaside is known as the little beach town that changed the world's view of how people should live. The community of Seaside is content living in quaint cottages in yards of preserved oak, pine, and palmetto, where leisurely walks and porch sittings are part of one's existence. Watercolor, one of our newest beach towns, is developing its community in delicate balance with nature by using native plants throughout its landscape. Rosemary Beach is named for the endemic wild rosemary, called Conradina, that grows throughout this beach town. Thousands of acres of pristine land in beaches of South Walton have been protected and preserved. One of the crown jewels of the Florida State Park system is Topsail Hill State Preserve, which the Nature Conservancy called the most pristine and environmentally protected piece of coastal property in Florida. This pristine preserve is home to a wide variety of threatened or endangered wildlife and plant communities. Grayton Beach State Recreation Area boasts one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, with nature trails over dunes, through scrub and flat woods along the banks of Western Lake. Grayton Beach has been named the best beach in the United States by the Laboratory for Coastal Research, and many other outstanding travel writers have made the same claim regarding our area beaches. Deer Lake State Park is a perfect hidden treasure, well worth exploring here in beaches of South Walton. The 1,920-acre park, named after Deer Lake, a freshwater coastal dune lake, is nestled among high, picturesque dunes and a diverse coastal dune habitat. Beautiful Eden State Gardens, located in historic Point, Washington, draws visitors to picnic at the tranquil edge of Tucker Bayou, or stroll under 600-year-old live oaks and admire its year-round gardens and restored home. Eden State Gardens is also home to Beaches of South Walton's Arts Quest, voted Best Arts Festival by Birmingham Magazine, where the beauty beneath the grove of oak mingles with the beauty of art and culture. We hope you have enjoyed our presentation of Beaches of South Walton's picturesque, pure, and simple treasures. The South Walton Tourist Development Council, in partnership with our county government, is dedicated to the protection and preservation of our natural resources. We encourage our visitors to assist in protecting and preserving our pristine treasures so generations to come may experience such a place in Beaches of South Walton, Florida's Panhandle, pure and simple.